pressure, the company announcing just a few minutes ago that it has been notified by one of its primary suppliers, Spirit Aerosystems, that there are two fittings for the aft fuselage of 737 MAX, going back some years, going back to 2019, that may have non-conforming parts in terms of those fittings where the aft fuselage comes together with the vertical fin on the aircraft. This is not a flight of safety issue. So those planes that are already in service that may have these non-conforming parts, they will remain in service. But what it does do is Boeing is going to have to start inspecting those planes, those MAXs that are currently in production. And we're talking about 737s, 738s, 737-8-200s, as well as P-8 model airplanes, which are delivered to the military. They will have to do inspections on those that are either in production or are in inventory, have already been built, to see if those models have a non-conforming part. At the same time, Boeing has also notified the FAA about the situation and will likely be working with the FAA to come up with a process for making sure that they can do an inspection and make sure that the proper parts are put into these aircraft. The bottom line is this, Melissa. This is likely going to have an impact in some fashion on production and ultimately deliveries of the 737 MAX. I've asked Boeing if they are halting production, if they are halting deliveries. They said at this time they are not doing that. But the significance here, Melissa, is that once again, there is an issue with a non-conforming part, not a Boeing part, but a part from a primary supplier, Spirit Aerosystems, that Boeing has been notified by Spirit and has determined these two parts within the where the fuselage and the vertical fin come together, they are not to the specifications for the manufacturing process. Therefore, they need to be replaced. In some cases, there are some planes that were built and they had conforming parts. So you are looking at shares of Boeing under pressure. If we can call up Spirit Aerosystems, I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing some pressure there as well, because what you're looking at here is, once again, production questions about the 737 MAX. And remember, Melissa, they have talked about for some time moving production from 31 a month up to 38 or 39 a month, maybe by the middle of this year. That I think is probably on hold, depending on how long it takes for them to do these inspections and determine how many aircraft have these parts, how quickly can they be replaced, and then ultimately there will likely be some type of a protocol for inspecting those 737 MAXs that are currently in service around the world.
Has SPR rectified the situation with this part? I mean, have they fixed it? And so therefore, if the inspection is done and they find this problem, they can then fix it right away?
Boeing says it will have the parts to fix the issue. Now, whether or not those parts are coming from Spirit or whether or not it is a different supplier, Boeing is going to have to work that out. We'll get more details, I'm sure, over the next day or two. But, for a company that, I don't know is close to a one-year high, 52-week high for Boeing, because things have been working well in terms of ramping up production or preparing to further ramp up production of the MAX. Now, that's going to be called into question.
Yep. Phil, thank you. Keep us posted. Phil LeBeau, we're seeing pressure in both stocks. It seems like 2 steps forward, 1 step back for Boeing. Tim, you're still a shareholder?
I'm a shareholder. That 215 level that Phil's talking about is the level it's been bucking up against. And I think you stay long, especially after I heard, and I can't assess 2 non-conforming pieces of the fuselage, and which is a great word. Is the only reason. I mean, fuselage. Could you spell that?
And non-conforming.
If I had to.
If you had to. Good answer. But I look at Boeing as a function of what I'm hearing from the airlines, and I think Delta's second quarter guide in terms of their RASM and their revenue outlook was fantastic. Revenue per available seat mile.
Good.
Yeah. No, this is important to me.
I thought you were going to do it if I did.
All over that. Guy, what do you think of Boeing?
So Boeing reports April 25th, I think, right? So I would submit at these levels, it's not cheap. I mean, it's probably 35 times next year's numbers-ish, but you can back that away and say, listen, they're on a trajectory now where things are getting back to normal. And Tim talks about it's a free cash flow story, which they finally seemingly have figured out once again. But history shows when you get these Boeing tape bombs, market sells first, asks questions later. We'll see how long that lasts. I'm really surprised, though, SPR, I guess it makes sense. I think they probably do 65% or 7% of Boeing's fuselages. That stock is down like 6.5%, 7%, which maybe makes sense, but maybe that's the one you should look at in terms of this sell-off.